So we're here today to talk about your new release. You want to kind of just introduce. Let's start with yourself and just kind of let us know a little bit more about you.
What do you want to know? I'm Stuart Black. I've been a professional columnist for nearly 30 years and retired from that to start doing. I have done quite a lot of game development in the past, but I kind of took a big break from the industry back in 2003. And this is my first book in 20 years.
Okay.
So, yeah. So, this is Eldritch, the Book of Madness. You can see
Okay.
cover
Yeah.
story. Yeah.
So
Hmm.
what's Blackvault like? What is that as a company, or is that just a name you're using, or what?
Well, my name's Stuart Black, and I don't know. I just like the idea of something sort of a bit darker and a bit sort of mysterious. And it just seemed to fit quite nicely. Really, you've got this kind of sort of repository of forbidden knowledge, and that's
Yeah.
kind of what I've been doing. Hopefully,
Okay. What kind of things have you worked on before?
I did some work on third edition. I've worked with White Wolf quite extensively. I worked on the Doctor Who role playing game. I worked on Scarred Lands, which were Necromancer games, and
Okay.
yeah, so I've done quite a lot. Done quite a lot of things. I'm like, yeah.
What would you say is probably like one of the best things that you've done so far that you can look back on and say, man, this is
In
awesome.
Scarred Lands, I did Yugman the Sage. He was my character, and I'm really into characters. I really like the interesting sort of nuanced characters. So
Okay.
he was mine. He's this little curly. He's like an indeterminate race creature of little sort of like weird furry creature with curly wizard slippers and a.
Okay.
It's just that appealed to me. That was a lot sort of lighter fantasy.
Okay. And so right now you were preparing you have a Kickstarter coming up. What is the project? Talk to me a little bit more about what's the goal and all that kind of stuff.
The project to raise funds for Eldritch to because I mean these books, wow, they are so incredibly expensive to produce. So it's a 300-page book, and it's just to raise funds for the book and hopefully enough funds for to pay for the next one. Because I want to go
Okay.
even deeper in terms of, I mean, the art costs in this book. I mean, it costs $20,000 to
I
do the
believe
art,
that.
and the next one I want to go even further. I mean, there's a lot of artists out there that, I mean, I was looking the other day, some of the professional artists are crazy expensive. I mean, we are talking, so much for just one piece of art. So, yeah, I want to re-release. I re-released. I released Lords of the Night Vampires, which is a huge selling book of mine back in 2002,
Okay.
and I want to re-release that again. But to do it justice, the art costs are going to be, just to have all those vampires and beautiful sort of saturated images. Oh,
Okay.
so yeah. So Tuesday is the day. Tuesday. So that's
So
basically.
what's going to be different with the version that you're wanting now, or is it just like a reprint? Like, because you said it's like 300 pages.
What's different? I write quite a lot. I'm sort of like a serial writer, so I wrote nearly 300,000 words, which is a
Okay.
big book.
Yes.
So yeah, so it's just got everything in it. The book that you've got here, this book is like the preview copy, and this is
Okay.
basically just the rule. This is just basically the rules bits that appeal to people that just want to pick it up and read it. But the heart of the book isn't really in here. In this little baby version. Um, so yeah, I was thinking about, yeah. So all the heart is the world building, which I'm known for. So it's
Okay.
all the secret cults and mysterious characters and things, and they're all in the big book,
Okay.
the Tuesday Kickstarter.
Okay. All right. So it's all going to be in the bigger book. You're kind of making it bigger and better. And so
Yeah.
the first version was like getting the idea out there, but now you've had time to flesh it out more.
Mm. Yeah. Well, actually, the truth is that when we did this book, when I released this book, this is the real painful truth. The publishing industry has changed beyond all recognition. I mean, the last 2 years have you can appreciate it's changed it. So the cost to print this book, I thought I'll come back to the industry after 20 years. I'll release this really tight, great 200-page book.
Yeah.
Okay, that didn't happen because the printing cost. I thought what I thought is I'll print this book, little book, be really easy to do, get it out really quickly. I'll give it to them at practically cost. Okay, so this book now, I mean, I charged 20 pounds for it before, so £25,
Yeah.
$25, and you couldn't even print it for anything like that these days. So going back to Kickstarter with a much bigger book with everything that I've written
Yeah.
and a much more reasonable price, really. But it's terrifying. So that's the painful truth. Don't
Yeah.
always get it right. Everything has changed so much.
Well, you can look at it as that you learned some stuff, you got some new experience, and so now
Yep.
you know you're a little bit more confident when this new campaign comes out that not as many hurdles because we can't ever say that it's going to be perfect. I know that just from my history of backing projects and just kind of seeing all the struggles that the creators go through because is it really just pretty much you?
Yeah. The hardest part, the reason it's been so delayed is because I don't. One thing I've never done is, it's really important to me to release something that's polished.
Yeah.
And I thought, okay, I've got this really big reputation. Been doing this for years. So I came back and thought, okay, I'm just click my fingers
Okay.
and I'll have loads of playtesters and people to review the content. No, oh, it didn't happen. So I've had to meticulously, and I mean literally, I mean I'm doing this full time. I had to literally go through every page over and over and over and over again because my editors that I have,
Yeah.
they're all long-term friends of mine that have been doing it also in the industry professionally, but
Hmm.
they can't edit D&D work, they can't edit game work because they don't understand a word of the text. None of them are gamers,
Okay.
so they can like do the prose and things, but everything else they couldn't do, which is 90% of the book. So
Yeah.
and they're so anyway, I have hired when we got to the stage where it was ready to, because there's two starts to a gaming book. There's two steps of the process. There's the design process, and it's not
Okay.
anywhere near ready to be edited at that point. It needs to be play tested. So yeah, biggest hurdle of this industry is getting play testers and feedback. It's a nightmare.
Okay. Okay. Well, everything that I've seen so far, though, like you said, it's really good and it's really polished.
Thank you.
I could have sworn that it was an official release
I
from one of
found a
the.
mistake. Thank you. I found a typo the other day. I nearly died.
Okay, well,
So
don't point it out. I didn't see
this,
it.
this is the pre-print version, so there's one more iteration to go
Yeah.
before they go to print. But yeah, I found it was just a duplicated word. It's like, "Arr."
It's all pretty polished, and I honestly, I really like it. But let's kind of talk about what's in it. You know,
Sure.
one, we'll start with the profanity system. Normally, when people hear profanity, they think of cuss words. At least in America, that's probably what we think.
Yep.
But yours is entirely a different concept of that word, the actual dread part of it.
Yeah.
And so, what was the idea behind that system and stuff like that?
Well, my whole sort of design ethic for all my games is that 5e is too easy. I think it's far too easy. Just I mean, I've been playing for years, and my players, obviously it's easy to check. As the DM, you can make any combat situation harder. But I wanted to have a little bit more of a nuanced game. So I thought, what way? How do you create something where it's not an immediate, it's like a layering effect.
Yeah.
So dread is a system by where the creatures of the Krashalar, the realm beyond the Black Mirror, are sort of inherently alien to our universe, and they're kind of like radioactive, and the
Okay.
radiation kind of affects humans in a strange. Getting quite excited about. I've talked about this for ages, and it gets quite. They're kind of like radioactive. So coming into contact with them affects mortal races in all kinds of negative ways. And you can be as sort of holy and devout as you like, but eventually, the fact that this thing is inherently evil and negative and dark. So basically, the players, the heroes, as I call them, are going to encounter these profane creatures, which are from this alien universe, and they're going to pick up dread.
Okay.
And the more dread they get, the more power the creatures of the profane have on them.
Okay.
So it manifests in multiple ways, like insanities. There's a whole range of insanities, addictions, and corruptions, and it starts with sort of like short-term madnesses and builds up to crazy magical insanities.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it. So basically, in a combat situation, you might have a Ravener, which is one of my sort of core creatures, and the Ravener can burn dread from any creature within say 30 feet of it to cause extra effects. So they might the basic effect is that they can burn at 1 point of dread from a hero to do like 1d6 extra damage.
Okay.
But that's how it starts. It just starts
Okay.
very sort of basic, simple.
So it's one of those things. The longer they play, the more the system puts against them to kind of
Yeah,
keep the challenge.
yeah. And
Okay.
it does become a lot more challenging. I mean, my players, they go, oh, a new system at the start, and they go, oh, okay. And then when they realize what it actually is and how it works, and how it completely, and I genuinely, without any humility, mean this, it completely and fundamentally can change any kind of uncertainty in a battle situation. They have no idea how a situation is going to go, because that
Yeah.
dread can do all kinds of different things. And they genuinely come into fight and think, oh no, we just genuinely don't know what's going to happen, or how this fight is going to go. And that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
But it has. I'm really lucky, because usually people go, no, a new system, but people have been so enthusiastic and so kind about it, and excited about it. So
Yeah.
it's exciting.
Okay. I like the insanities and the addictions, and I like a little forward that you put in there about how this is not something that's just fantasy. You're taking inspiration from real life. I was able to kind of tie some of them together with their real world counterpart, but you made up a lot that I couldn't get. I'm law enforcement, so when I was looking at all the addictions and stuff like that, it's like, I don't know what drug that is. Or I don't.
Yeah, I've got a lot of mental health, a lot of mental illness around me. In my friends, my closest friends really got really bad bipolar, to the point that she's had 50 ECT sessions. I mean, that's just grueling, you know.
Yeah.
And so I was just thinking about, what can I do that's really kind of like, because we all discussed it, and they love what I've done in terms of because what I did, I didn't want to make it every game does the
Hmm.
same thing. Schizophrenia, they do it, and they use the real world terms, and I wanted to create something proper magical and different. So a
Yeah.
lot of the stuff in there is just what I thought, well, what's fun and interesting and different, that's a challenge to the characters, rather than dragging them down completely, because these things are usually really negative, but we're playing a
Yes.
role-playing game, and it's not so much fun. So, like Black Dog, Fell Shade, which you actually literally haunted by a manifestation of evil, rather
Hmm.
than being something into you actually your sort of dread is manifesting this evil demon dog thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's not one of those in real life, but the Black Dog, of course, is in a mental health problem. So the
Yeah.
question is, yeah. Hmm.
How the your playtesters and players and them, how they do they feel like the system is kind of respectful to that, and it's not like, oh, we're here to make fun and make a game out of your mental health, but
Oh, yeah.
kind of
Well,
embrace it.
I've been to a few studies. I've passed it around a couple of mental health charities,
Okay.
the insanity side of things, and I did that with well, it's done with the greatest amount of love, really, because my friends are very precious to me, and
Yeah.
nobody said this is because there's no actual there's like no self-harming things in there, or there's no actual depression in there, or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think it kind of they've all said the same thing, that this is really sort of compassionate towards it, rather than it's acknowledging mental health, and it's kind of acknowledging that these things are out there, but it's kind of like making a fantastical element to them too, so that
Yeah.
they can kind of explore those things without it being, oh my gosh, this is like the real world all over again. So
Yeah.
that's really nice. It's nice to
Okay.
have something that's a bit different. Yeah.
Okay. Now, we were talking about madness and corruption a little bit, because you said it starts with small, like lower levels of that. Like, can you kind of explain like how that system is meant to kind of affect you as a player, and maybe as a DM, how you should use that kind of thing?
We start off with minor corruptions, which basically, as your dread gets higher, the player can choose to buy corruptions. That's how it starts, to reduce your level of dread. Because when you get to
Okay.
6 or 7 dread, you're thinking, I'm going to get killed in any fight, I get
Okay.
into. So then, when a stressful situation happens, your minor corruption will trigger, and they are things like, let's say I wrote this book for a second, and I know what I'm talking about. So, for instance, things like, what do you want? Strength, dexterity, intelligence, wisdom, constitution, charisma. Choose one.
Let's do strength.
Okay, so you've got so when your minor corruption triggers, you've got might ebb. So any melee damage you deal is halved before modifiers.
Okay.
But it's only 10 minutes, and so they're quite powerful, and they're
Yes.
quite draining, but they're not. I mean, like that is the worst of the four, to be honest. And they are random. You think, whoa, but it's not crippling, but it's bad enough for it's
Yeah.
quite a bad thing to happen for 10 minutes.
It's kind
But it's
of
only one.
a rough trade-off of like, oh, instead of having the monster use the dread against me, I can pretty much use it against myself
Yeah,
and pick the lesser of the two evils.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. And then you get major corruptions, and the major corruption from that one, they last until you take a long rest.
Okay.
And the conversion of that one would be lose any bonus to your melee attack damage from your strength modifier.
Okay.
So it's a little bit, it's not as bad,
Yeah.
but it's still, yeah, it still sits there. And of course, they can both, if you're a really nasty DM, which I would really, really approve of, they can both trigger. They can technically both trigger at the same time because they're different corruptions.
Okay.
So that's how corruptions start. But they're all they're random ones, and usually a corruption is a manifestation of someone's journey. So if you're a really sort of really proud warrior or a barbarian that is really into dealing damage, then that will be crippling to you.
Yes.
But obviously, of course, it's usually just one encounter, so it's
Okay.
not the end of the world. But it is, yeah, it's horrendous. Hopefully, so that just keeps that player a little bit humble. They're
Yeah.
going around dealing the 3D. I mean, it's they're still dealing damage and they're still effective. They're
Yeah.
just not quite effective for a little while. So when that big battle comes around, they just don't know. I mean, it might not trigger. Something
Yeah.
might not quite trigger it, and some of the creatures can trigger dread powers. You just don't know whether your corruption is going to trigger. It's like, oh, no, this is terrifying.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
kind of brings a little bit of attention to the game, but it also helps kind of uh, help with the overpowered characters towards the end of the campaigns. Can you get more than one corruption, like major corruption?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You can, and obviously, past corruption, you've got insanities.
Yes.
They're more expensive to purchase, and they're permanent. They kind of it depends which one you have, and they all kind of have different effects.
Yeah.
And obviously, it's like sort of other sort of insanity based games. You need to they don't last forever. They go through like my friends with bipolar. She goes through phases and bouts, and that's what happens here. You go through different phases, but it's usually a bit more sort of pernicious. So when you get affected,
Yeah.
it lasts for a while. But again, they're all personality traits anyway. They're kind of things that make you. Like, there's one that makes you evil, more evil, and your alignment changes one step towards evil. And I like that
Okay.
because and the other players aren't supposed to know, so you wouldn't know why why the other character was doing something a bit shady.
Yeah.
Just
I
like
could
little things.
give it to a paladin.
Yep, did that. Great fun.
Now, are all the monsters in the version I saw, or did you add more or create more
There's
as
50, there's 52 in the finished books. There's 2.5 times more monsters in the deluxe version than there is in the one you've seen.
awesome?
Um, and most of my favorites aren't even in the version that you've got.
Okay.
The Rogue is my favorite of the monsters in this book.
Okay.
He's just great. But yeah, go on.
So how did you put your twist on all these monsters? Because none of them feel like reskins. In that sense.
I just wanted to. I think the thing with me that's different to other writers, and I do really feel this, is that when you get a book from I always find when you get like a D&D book generally, you'll have something that's kind of like it's like a brain dump of a bunch of writers,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes this is no criticism. It's just because sometimes that's a great thing. And you've got lots of ideas, you've got lots of different sort of concepts in there, but I'm very specific. I'm very focused on what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, and as you can see with the book, there's nothing in there that isn't, in this profane category. So, yeah, when I was doing the monster, I just thought, let's do stuff that's different. I had a load of ideas. I thought, what would I want to see as a player? What would challenge me as a player? Like the
Yeah.
Dreadghoul with the paralysis tokens. Um, and there's a couple of others at the end of us in the deluxe version, which I shouldn't say this really. I watch what spoilers I say, but the end of us gives you ennui tokens, and you stop starting to care about things as the more tokens build up,
Okay.
and that kind of thing really. And the Zangul that basically is a hunter. It just look every time it hits you, just reduces your movement speed until you
Yeah.
can't get away, and it just eats you. So those are I don't know. I think there's just so many options out there for scary, nightmarish things. When I started, I did a big Google search of what the most scary things were to humans.
Yeah.
Dogs, cats, snakes, and I just put them all in there. I just thought, what's really creepy, and stuck them all in there.
I liked your twist on zombies when you went with the bounded.
The Bound Dead. Well, there's a lot of Raveners. There's about 7 in the final book. There's
Okay.
quite a lot of Raveners in the final book, and they all do different things. So the Deathbinders are the minions of Vailish, the Lord of Pain,
Mm-hmm.
and they are basically super depraved, completely emotionally detached, monstrous things. And they created the Bound Dead, and the Bound Dead are basically they're sort of exactly the same as undead, except they're their mental state and their emotions and their minds are mostly intact. So these are
Okay.
undead. So these are undead that are have intelligence scores. So they've got intelligence scores of 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and
Yeah.
they know who they are. I mean, they're pitiable things because I mean it's horrific when you think about it because they're trapped. They're mortal creatures trapped in dead, decaying flesh for all
Yeah.
eternity, and they're absolutely they're absolute slaves of Baelish, and yeah, it's horrific. It's horrific when you think about it. But yeah, so the Raveners are front and center in the whole book. When the players come to the campaign setting, the Wastes, the Raveners are following them everywhere,
Okay.
and the fogs are, and when the Deathbinders look through their eyes, their eyes glow red, and
Ah.
and they're following them all over the place. And when the players get to like 5th level, and the basic Urr-Raveners and the standard Raveners are no longer a threat, they're still following them wherever they go. Or like one little lone Ravener in the fog, just to watch
Yeah.
them. So I think they keep their eyes on them at all times, so that the heroes always know that they're being watched and that they're never alone in this realm of misery.
So you said
All
there's
over the place.
7 different versions of
Yeah,
Raveners in the book.
yeah,
Which one is the scariest? Because right now the actual artwork for the Urr-Ravener looks
yeah,
really creepy with the
yeah,
smiley face and everything.
yeah, yeah.
But I'm kind of curious about what you feel is your favorite.
Well, the reason he looks like that is because the Urr-Ravener, Ur is the profane word for two, which you can speak the profane language in the book actually, and Ur is the profane language for two, and it's basically they're the ones that the Deathbinders learn to create first. The rite of is the first rite they have to do. Where they have to torture. Sorry, guys, spoiler warning, and they have to torment and torture a creature to within an inch of its life and keep it like that for
Okay.
a while with all these necromantic potions and things. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's monstrous. I tend to gloss over the details of that kind of abuse of any kind, but you can appreciate the kind of things that must be going on there. And so obviously the death binders at this point are only like low level, so they're not very good. So they've been dissecting these half dead people, and that's why that Ravener looks so monstrous because they haven't quite got the ritual right, and they've done a lot of dissection
Okay.
and torment, so they look a bit different. But the actual Raveners. So my favorite is the Baleful Ravener.
That's the one that glows, right?
Yeah, yeah, it's the one that glows, and it let's just say without spoilers that it's radiant resistant. Let's just say that because obviously I'm sure people will be listening and they want to be spoiled by these things
Yeah.
and they want to come up against them. So yeah, but that's the one that they all go, oh my god, and then there's swearing coming out of everybody's mouths because it's terrifying when they find them and they okay, that's not what I thought it was going to be. But but there's a torment for everything, and all these paladins, these hugely egocentric and rah paladins and everything. There's like, okay, we're gonna create torments to
Yeah.
directly, oppose that, and that's what they did. That's what the Deathbinders did, and they've got some truly monstrous things coming up for the players.
Nice. Nice.
Really,
What exactly are the Vivimancers?
the Vivimancers. Okay, so I was explaining before that the Krashular, the realm beyond the Dark Mirror,
Yeah.
is another kind of like another reality,
Hmm.
and the Vivimancers are kind of like permanent stationed wraiths in our world, but they're corporeal, sort of semi-corporeal creatures. They're kind of
Okay.
like the closest thing to gods, really.
Wow. Okay.
They're Vivimancers. They're Vaelish's um, sort of monstrous second in command. There's 3 of them that float around and generally
Okay.
my players in the final game they actually did encounter one. Didn't fight, but they did encounter it, and they do have quite a big part in the story because there is a story going on. There's a lot of power plays going on in the
Yeah.
wastes,
Okay.
and that we should yeah. So the Vidmancers are terrifying. I think. I hope.
Yes, they seemed like it, and that's why I wanted to bring them up. One of the other ones is the Zyvek.
Yeah, the faceless. Well, I started off thinking, okay, what's the ultimate thing that somebody could do to sort of like prove their allegiance to Vaelish, the Lord of Pain? And
Hmm.
of course, it's cutting parts of yourself off, isn't it? Cutting off your
Yeah.
hands, starting with the finger. And then I thought, well, what's better than cutting off your face? And getting a bit excited about that there. And so yeah, the Zyvek, I kind of like this more. I wanted to put well, when I was doing my research, people said that there aren't enough aberrations in 5e.
Yeah.
So the book's filled with them. It's literally brimming with them. And I just thought this sort of aberrant, not quite, um, not quite humanoid, not quite monstrous, not quite sort of anything. These
Yeah.
weird things that have no faces, and yeah, I just like the idea of cutting off your face to prove your loyalty and your allegiance, and the only way you can assuage that fear, that pain, is by sort of implanting somebody else's living face on your own.
Yeah.
And I just thought that's just crazy creepy.
Because all these creatures feel real. They don't feel like it was just a random creature that you threw stats on so that it could be in the game.
That's what I was saying. Most of the things, really, I mean, sadly, I've said in saying, but most of the things, especially the characters that you haven't seen, like Vanda
Hmm.
Hallow, with all the people in the book, but the little introductions. You
Yeah.
probably won't notice this yet, but they all tell a story, and they're all in the game.
Okay.
And Vanda's very important to me as a character because he exists in my head. He's not a character of mine in my game. He's just a character in my head.
Yeah.
And they all live and breathe. And they're all doing various things. And the players will have to the heroes will have to rescue Vanda. If the DMs go to the Waits, they'll have to rescue him, and
Yeah.
then he becomes a very important character in the world. But yeah, I think everything has to be I always say this, it has to be so cohesive. When you're writing something, don't just create something randomly, create something beautiful. Try and write something that's hopefully beautifully written, and
Yeah.
make it feel like it's part of the same world. So you're not going to have anything in it. There are some non-profane creatures in the book for very specific reasons, but only a couple. But
Okay.
yeah, it's, I think, just really important to be really sort of cohesive.
Okay. And then I saw the next thing that we looked at was the spells, because you created a whole bunch of spells for this game, and all of them are pretty good. And then when the people get the book, they'll get to read all of them and see the ones that they want. But how did you find a way to balance them without like breaking it? Too much. There'll be
All right,
moments.
that's the end of the chat now. Let's just go. Come on. No. Well, the thing I haven't said about this book, the USP of this book that nobody has ever done, I don't think, well, maybe somebody's done in the past, but not recently, is that there's nothing in this book for players. There's no classes. There's everything in this book. The profane spells are not for players.
Yeah.
And I've made that repeatedly clear. These are profane things. Of course, you can give them to your players.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to turn. I mean, there's a firebolt example earlier on in the book where the DM lets the player find this fire blast spell, which is more powerful than a standard spell, but of course it's more powerful because it's powered by profane magic. So
Okay.
this player thinking, "Oh, I'm so great! I've got this really powerful second level spell." It's like, okay, and then 6 weeks later he's gibbering insane,
Yeah.
which is perfect. But so the spells, how do they balance them? Well, pain, again, like everything, it was really difficult. Lots of people involved, lots of money expended by
Yeah.
getting people to proof them and test them. And you're never going to be 100% right, but they're
Yeah.
within the ballpark. But they are more powerful and they are intentionally more powerful than normal spells. Again,
Yeah.
because the players aren't supposed to get their hands on them. The player shouldn't even be reading the book. People go, "Oh, I'll be reading it." It's like, why are you reading it? Why are you looking at it? Why? Because this is not for you. There's nothing in this book for you, and it's don't you want to be surprised by the magic in this book?
Exactly.
The cruel and crippling nastiness that's in this book.
The
Hopefully.
surprises aren't meant for you. They're meant for the DM to give you.
That's true. Oh, that's true. And yeah, so yeah, but they're, again, like the monsters, they're very thematic, and they're all kind of things like what would Valish and Chanagor have in terms of magic and he.
Yeah.
Well, in fact, this book doesn't have. There's another 50 spells in the finished book that I took out of the version that you got because without the Kalzarath, which is the Nightmare Realm, which you
Yeah.
haven't any knowledge of at all, really. It does mention it, but it's not in this book. The deluxe version, the one that's coming out on Kickstarter, has a whole section on the Nightmare Realm because obviously Chanagor is the Lord of Madness, and his minions, his zealots, are all about dreams, and they live in dreams and such like that. So there's a lot of dream spells in there as well. In fact, I
Yeah.
brought some of the spells back from second edition because there's loads that Wizards took out. I thought I'll bring them all back. So they're all in there as well, in different forms, but they are back in there in some ways. Yeah.
Yeah. As a DM, what would be I know the Shadow Shroud exists. Is that kind of what somebody can use to kind of start bringing some of this stuff in, or do you want them to go with the route of the cultist, or like, because I know there's just so much in this book.
Yeah, there is so much in there. And well, I would. Oh, such a difficult question. I would have. I think if I was saying to someone people have asked me how do I incorporate this content.
Yeah.
So what I would probably say is, start off small, very small, feel
Yeah.
it, put them in. earlier in the campaign, have the players meet the minions of Vailish, the thrall, which are the basic clerics. Well, not the really basic clerics, but the clerics of
Yeah.
Vailish. Have them doing another adventure completely, and then bumping into them in town in the middle of the
Okay.
night when they're stealing off the drunks, and they're
Yeah.
taking them off to the wastes in these big meat. They've got these big wooden caravan things that they put them all in,
Okay.
and or something even more devious. But that's always a good way of starting. And then they kill some of the zealots, and then they find, I don't know, they find a holy symbol, a profane symbol of Vailish, but they don't know what it is, and they go back to their elders, and their elders don't know what it is because obviously it's completely alien. And then, like, okay, what have we got here? We don't really know, and nobody knows what it is. And
Hmm.
divination magic also doesn't show up anything. And they go,
Okay.
okay, this is weird. So they do a bit more investigation, and then they find out that the cultists are holed up in some building just out of town, using the shadow shroud to hide themselves from normal divination magic.
Yeah.
And they go there, and of course it's all a huge trap, and the heroes have annoyed the zealots enough to warrant getting dragged over into the wastes, and that's where
Yeah.
it all starts. So yeah,
Okay.
there's tons of stuff you can do with it. Tons. There's a lot more about the cults in the deluxe version. A lot
Okay.
more. A lot more. I've rewritten the entire introduction to make it much more sort of darker at the start, and
Yeah.
not so sort of bombastic about all these different sort of alien races and things. I think, yeah, people say to me all the time, "Oh, this is too complicated to use." People that haven't read it, that I just want to
Yeah.
point out, I've done tons of research on over the course of the last couple of years from people that have read the book,
Yeah.
play tested it, and worked with it, and they all say it's effortless. But the people that you look at it casually, oh my gosh, there's so much here to do. There's so much here you can use, and but you just cherry pick your little bits. You take the bits you like. What better than a proper, fully fleshed out evil cult with actual motivations? I mean, these guys aren't. I keep saying this. It's so different. These guys are not your average cult. They're not just sitting around waiting for the heroes to stumble across their base and, oh, you surprised me. Now we're all going to get killed. Nope, they're absolutely ready for the players. They've developed techniques and tactics of fighting the players. They've got all kinds of spells and
Yeah.
counter techniques. The players won't know what's hit them. Because
Yeah.
if the DM did it properly, but yeah, just cherry pick, take what you like, take the cults, have them as the cultists are trying to perform a ritual, because there are many throughout the book, and
Hmm.
they're trying to perform one of the rituals, and the players just have to stop it before it conjures one of the avatars or something. There's all kinds of terrible things that can happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's easy to just cherry pick it and take what you like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You kind of mentioned the waste because that's where you want some of the adventures to take place, or most of them. Not most of them.
All of them.
All of them.
No,
Okay.
yeah. So the waste is my campaign setting. It's only a demi plane. It's a little realm. I don't want to say too much about that because that would ruin things. But yeah,
Oh
so
yeah.
the players, when the heroes antagonize the zealots to a point where they think, okay, these guys think they're all that.
Yeah.
Let's show them that they're not. They then get then they will set up the shadow shroud, and the players will think they're hunting the zealots, but the zealots are like, yep, okay, this is just all one big fat trap,
Yeah.
and they'll get in the shadow shroud to the waste, and the players will end up waking up at the finger of Vanos in the wastes, and they can't get
Yeah.
out, and their magic doesn't work properly,
Okay.
and yeah, and it's unlike other horror settings, it is difficult and it is a proper challenge, and my players have gone, oh my god, and they've felt genuine. It's the unrelenting fact that there's
Yeah.
nowhere to really hide,
Yeah.
and it's not impossible. They have quests that they have to do from there, so it becomes a quest hub.
Yeah.
And the choice is how long do they stay there for and what to do. In my last campaign, the players chose to stay. They knew they couldn't do much, but they could change the balance of power in favor of good to some
Yeah.
degree and make it less of a profane, evil place of suffering. I mean, this is literally a realm of suffering made manifest. It is a hell place. People there are sacrificed, tortured, tormented. Everyone's got their own curses. They've all got their own really terrible stories
Yeah.
why they're there in the first place, and you can't really trust anybody apart from Vanderhaar, of course. Yeah, so yeah, and there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on. In fact, there's a big map A2 map that comes with the book,
Okay.
that you can get with the book as well, and you can use the ways. There's a PDF version that's got no names on it, so
Yeah.
or names that the big guy that will help them I won't say
Okay.
too much, but the bigger like
Yeah.
he's he kind of like what they think they know of where they are and where. So he's like mentioning what you think the names of the places. It's completely wrong, but there you go.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
so the way, yeah.
So are you like maybe planning on doing another like companion book where it's all the adventures like Strand and all those? Is that something that you want to do one day?
Well, this is book one of five
Okay.
in the series, and yeah, the next book follows on from this, but it's well, I was talking right at the start. I was talking about I think D&D is too easy. What I will say is that dread is just one of three um, concepts that I've got that work
Awesome.
all together in unison against the players and the heroes, and kind of just drag them down to the mire a little bit and make them a little bit less confident. And
Yeah.
yeah, you could be in a situation where all three. I almost said what they were. Then. You'd be in a situation where all three of them are affected at once. The players are affected because all the minions of these different things can, they'll all come together, and it's going to be like
Yeah.
can't say anything.
No,
But
I
yeah,
can tell you're excited though, and one of the most
I
important
am
things.
beyond excited. I am honestly, it's living and breathing in my head, and it really is. And there's a character in this book um, called Bella.
Okay.
That's all I can say really. And she
Yeah.
will. She's already high role playing, so she will come along. I can say this. So she will come along, and she will be in when they get to the waste. They're not alone. She's like the dungeon master in the actual cartoon,
Okay.
and she will just antagonize them and wind them up and mock them mercilessly. But she'll help them. Oh, darling. She refers to everyone as darling. She's this really sort of really, I've kind of got like role playing notes in there, but all the characters are alive, and she's very, very, very precious because if the players can get it just right, if
Yeah.
the DM can get Bella just right, um, yeah, she can be. There's a lot. There's a lot
Awesome.
going on there. All this book's all about distraction and displacement, and you're not quite sure what's really going on, and the players will think they know,
Yeah.
and you think no, not really, and that's the fun of it, isn't it? It's not because D&D is so obvious. You see an orc and you think it's an orc, and it's not gonna, it hasn't got this like tormented backstory or any kind of
Yeah.
backstory, but Bella does, and she's a big player, and
Awesome.
oh, I can't wait for you to read all that stuff.
Yeah. So we got 5 books possibly because it's book 1 of 5,
Yep.
and obviously you as a writer you have the skills to bring that around. But right now, really, the backers helping you on
Yeah,
the
it's never been
Kickstarter
more important.
is what's going to help you push the rest of what you have
Yeah,
and bring it to everybody. And I mean, 300 pages is no joke. That's a lot of content.
it really
Um,
is.
and
It's more than that. I mean, I can go up to 352. That's how many it currently sort of goes to. But it's a big book. There's a lot in there, and there's monsters and more spells in the little bits at the back. There's a whole like a campaign section. It's not really a
yeah,
campaign because like, the idea of the wastes bit, I always thought the waste bit is that you can just you've got all these locations in the waste, and you can put them in any
hmm
campaign. You can put them. I
yeah,
mean, there's taverns, there's all kinds of things. You can just stick them in any campaign, and they work everywhere. Again, cherry picking. You can just like Father
yeah,
Bellin, one of the characters, one of the cursed characters, Father Bellin. You can put his story, and they're all hopefully really interesting. You can put
yeah,
that in any campaign. You're just going along. The characters just going to I don't know, going to Greyhawk City, and they come across this little chapel, and there's
yeah.
that story. An evening's adventure for a DM sorted. Just like that.
Okay. And
Yeah.
so for the Kickstarter, how
Yes.
many days is it going to be? Like, how long are you planning on doing the
It
campaign?
runs from. He says, looking at his notes. It runs from 30th of August until the 20. I think it's Tuesday the 20. Is it Tuesday? Tuesday the 25th of September.
Okay. Okay.
So, and
All
that's
right.
enough time for people as well if they pledge to it, because I know people sometimes wait payday. I
Yeah.
didn't want to do I didn't want to do a really long campaign. They are grueling. You don't get
Yes.
any sleep. I think 30 days. I mean, I've done this before, and I love. Oh my gosh, I love Kickstarter so much. I love talking to people. I love talking to the fans. I love talking to you.
Yeah.
It's just hearing their hearing their enthusiasm and seeing them get excited about the spells and the magic and things,
Yeah.
and just seeing them respond to it. Some people say, "Oh, it's overwritten." I get that. I get that. People say, I have the next book, the Book of Monstrous Races, is my next book. It's
Okay.
400 pages of races. You can imagine from this book what that's like. So it's this little tiny text block of stats, and then 4 pages of what they eat, where they live, how they think,
Yeah.
what songs they sing. And one playtester wrote to me and he said, "This book is fantastic, but I just want the stat blocks, please." I said, "It will be about 12 pages long." He said, "Yeah, that's fine. That's not much of a book, you know." But that's no fun to me
Yeah.
because I don't really enjoy writing all that stuff. It's the world stuff that I enjoy, you know.
Yeah. It lets your writer part come back out and kind of.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So all the races, there are some races mentioned in this book that are in the next book. The Dran, there's a Dran character, which are the pseudo dragon characters,
Okay.
and they're in the next book. So it's kind of everything's mixed. All 5 books are all mixed together. There's loads of stuff in this book that you'll go, "Wow, I can't believe that's 3 years ago, and that's in this book."
Yeah.
Hopefully.
No. Yeah. Well, that's the hope, right? How much is the what kind of pledge levels do you have?
It's £40
Okay.
for the finished book. But the one thing I've done a deal with DHL. So if people like it, if you're in America, I think it's £26 for a courier, but it's £26 regardless of the number of books you order.
Okay.
So it's pretty good that. I think that's right. If you order like 3 or 4, it puts the price right down. Yeah, so hopefully that's what I've been saying to people. Listen, that's you can get people in your area and you can combine them. It really makes a difference to the shipping costs.
Yeah.
Yes, but I've only got that and the map. I mean, I'd love to have done one of these big campaigns where I had dice and things, but I'm not such a big fan of all that. You know, they look really flashy, but the substance is in the writing. The substance of the writing, it's good. So you don't really want all the like monster cards. I mean, yeah, it's great. It's great having it's great having art. It's great having pictures of the art, you know, and the carrier dragon.
Yes.
I don't know if you can see that, but you know, it's
No,
great
that's
having pictures of the art and you know, art cards and things. But I don't know. I just think just a nice humble campaign. You know, that people will really be attracted to the game and what's going on in the background and. You know, setting my characters properly insane because there's loads of stuff that's not fleshed out in 5th edition, and this talks much more about madness and insanities in an easy to comprehend way. So
yeah, and I mean that's kind of how it was when I was reading through it. I was able to read through it and kind of understand the concepts and see how I would apply it to the campaigns if we were playing, and I felt like being a jerk and making the game harder.
How dare you? Yeah, but you know that's it. There are some secret insanities that I recommend you don't tell the players about.
Yeah.
And they do different things. Like one of them lowers your armor class.
Okay.
And my paladin.
Is this
like, why? Sorry.
No, I was gonna say, is this project going to be only physical, or is there a digital pledge? What do we have?
There's a physical copy, and there's a PDF. And they can get a copy of the maps. And there is a short story that I've written. Because I've written a few novels in the past, and there's a short story that takes I thought, what better way of something different? What better way of showing the DM how to run a campaign? Actually, writing the story of the first adventure. It's called The Manor House, and it's the first adventure that the players will go through. And it literally tells the story of that through the eyes of my players. The characters that. The sample players in the book when it gives you little examples. It's those guys going through the same adventure at first level and enjoying that. So that's another little thing that we'll get free as well.
All right. Well, I really appreciated getting a chance to talk to you. I'm so glad you sacrificed your sleep so that you could talk to me.
It was worth it. Oh, it's been really good fun. It's really good. It's really exciting. It's nice to talk to people. You obviously know your stuff. You know, it's really interesting that you're you're doing this. You're helping people so much. And just having a voice, because I'll tell you what, the hardest thing about this, I thought coming back to the industry, I won RPG Now's best newcomer out of like 8,000 people back in 2002. So I had 100,000 mail. I thought I cannot fail. Eldritch cannot fail. 100,000 strong mailing list, and so I emailed them. And I mean, how many email addresses have you got from 2002?
Yeah,
and they're all CompuServe and things, and I think like 99% of them came back undelivered.
Yeah.
I thought, okay, this isn't working out. But it's it's fun, but I do need some support this time around. Hopefully, people will just see how sincere it is and how sincere I am and enthusiastic I am. But I won't be able to do another book if this one doesn't do sort of £20,000.
Yeah.
Because of COVID. I mean, I've been working full time. I started off with. I thought this was going to be out 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's a lot riding on it. But what I was trying to say the hardest thing about this, and this is my thanks to you so much, is I emailed 400 different companies. And you'd think as an ex-columnist, you have companies calling me all the time.
Yeah.
Back in the day, you would know how to deal with this. But anyway, none of them, even the paying companies didn't reply. The ones like $1,000 for a review, they didn't reply. None of them. So thank you, because you give a voice to small companies like mine that really need some
Yeah.
kind of platform, and the doors are just slammed in your face all the
Yeah.
time, and it's frustrating as hell.
Obvious that you have passion for this, and I think it's going to be a really good campaign.
I mean,
So,
there are bits of the book I haven't shown to anyone,
mhm.
apart from the proofreaders and the editors. Nobody else has seen it, and because I don't want people to know what the actual people think they know what the story is
Yeah,
in Eldritch, but it's something else, and nobody's seen it, apart from like a
good.
few people with big NDAs and the big power play that's going on. I'm going to stop talking now. It's too exciting.
You're gonna talk yourself into trouble here. No,
And
but
I wrote myself a list here of things I couldn't say,
oh,
and just
okay.
so in great big letters so I can see. I thought mustn't say any of the things on this page. Do not talk about things on this page. And it's like, okay, I've been good for once. I've been good and not doing
Yeah.
it. I've got anything. No spoilers. I just get anyone's name.
No, and I think everyone's gonna be in for a surprise. And once it's out and in the world, we'll definitely have to come back and we can do a deep dive into a lot of that kind of stuff.
Well, it's out for Christmas. I mean, it's literally finished,
Yeah.
so it goes to print. So the pre-print's been set up already. So I mean, it's really, really sudden. I mean, it's literally, apart from the rewriting of the first couple of pages, which if you go back and you look at the new version, you'll see it's completely different. But apart from that, it's literally done,
Yeah.
and it's just got to go to the printer. So I'll wait and see, sort of early, sort of 14th of September time. See how well
Yeah.
it's done. So I know how many copies to print. Hopefully I can print. I've got a number in my head of how many I want to print, because it puts the
Yeah.
print cost down. If I do the minimum, it's going to be scary,
Yeah.
because even at £40, it's kind of like, ooh, okay,
And I can understand how stressful that stuff gets.
it's gone up. I mean, when I started this, it was this company alone are great. They've done all of Chaosium's products. They're stunning. The book is beautiful. I mean, I've got Call of Cthulhu 5th edition on my shelf, looking at me now, and it is stunning. It's beautiful paper. That it's just, and this is the book that you're gonna have. It's beautiful quality, but that is expensive, and the cost. When I started this, and I thought, okay, deluxe edition, 300 pages. You're looking at. I mean, I should be selling it for £50,
Yeah.
because it's. But I thought, it's just no one's gonna go for that. So let's go for 40, and let's just hope that even like if sort of 300 or 400 people pick up an extra on top of sort of normal pickup, that'll be so good.
All right. I'm excited. I'm ready to see how your campaign goes.
Me
And
too. I can't wait to find out what you think next.
all right. Well, it was great talking to you. I'm going to let you go ahead and go get some sleep now.